Good evening, family. I was so blessed to be here in the courtyard with so many of us on Sunday, and truly is just a tremendous blessing to see the barbecues come back. Of course, we're seeing Acts 2:42 take place, and thinking of that, as we continue steadfast, Acts 2:42, in the apostles' doctrine and fellowship, in the breaking of bread and in prayer. How beautiful it is to see the church doing that. But I just want to remind you, life groups, that the life groups, that's what you guys are all about. I mean, you guys are fulfilling Acts 2:42 in the homes. In fact, it goes on to say, I think it's in verse 46 of Acts 2, it says that they continued in the temple, and daily from house to house they ate their food with gladness and simplicity of heart. And the Lord was adding to the church daily those who are being saved. That's what the life groups are about. It's about coming together. It's about fellowshipping. It's about getting to know one another. It's about continuing in the apostles' doctrine. Of course, you guys continue in the Word of God, continue in fellowship together, in meal and breaking of bread, and in prayer and worship, and it's just beautiful. And what I love about it is it says, and the Lord added to the church daily those who are being saved. I want to remind you guys, the vision of the life groups is, like Hebrews says, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, coming together in order to stir up one another for love and for good works. And as you guys are doing that, and some of those good works is reaching people with the gospel. You're reaching neighbors, reaching friends, encouraging one another, praying for one another. And I really want to just commission us as a congregation, as a fellowship here in Yorba Linda, to reach out and using the life groups. We've seen this happen so many times. So truly an awesome blessing as we think through it. Well, thinking about reaching out, thinking about, stirring one another up for love and for good works. We've been talking about good works. Sunday, we discussed, what that looks like, good works, and that there's coming a day that we're going to stand before the Lord, and He's going to try those works. So we've been looking at 1 Corinthians chapter 3, and of course, we've looked at the foundation, which is Jesus Christ, verse 11. Verses 12 and 13, we got into the building materials. So we saw the right foundation, then we see the right building materials. And Paul there is using this illustration of some of the building materials were shoddy. They're made out of wood, hay, and stubble. Others of them are strong and that would endure an actual fire. They're marble, they're gold, they're silver, and they're going to remain. And so he talks about this refiner's fire. And so I want to remind us that, first of all, God's called us to labor for His name, to serve Him in His field. He calls us co-laborers, if you would. There, I think it's verse 8 here of chapter 3. Co-laborers with Him, working together with God to fulfill God's plan. But here's the amazing thing, and Paul dealt with this in chapter 3 there in verse 10. He says it's God's grace that's allowed us to be a part of this. And so Jesus is the foundation. And we're building now God's kingdom, because the idea of the house there, or the building, is the church. We all together are building God's church, and each of us are going to stand before the Lord of how we built, of what sort of material we used. Was it fleshly? Remember the context. The carnal Christian, was it all about me? It was all about my, kingdom, my group, the guy I like to follow, that carnality that they're dealing with. Was it all about me, or was it all about Him? Was it all about His glory? I think of John the Baptist, and I didn't bring this up Sunday, but this is such a great verse. John the Baptist in John chapter 3 says, when they said, well, what about Jesus? He's getting more fame, more popularity than you and your disciples. And John says, listen, that He would increase and I would decrease is the goal. You see, that's the right motive. And those motives are going to be tried. Now, we saw this idea of refiner's fire. Right in the end, the day of judgment, there's going to be this refiner's fire where it's going to try our works. It's going to try, what sort they were. Were they for God's glory, or were they for my glory? Now, we saw also another refiner's fire here in this life now. that can actually prepare us for the ultimate refiner's fire, which is trials. We saw how trials in our lives, difficulties we go through, they purge us. And that's exactly what the scriptures teach, is that they purge us and cleanse us. 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 6 and 7 talk about it. We see it in the book of James, James 1, verses 2 through 4. We see it in 2 Corinthians, in chapter 4, verses 16 through 18, where it says that the things we're going through are working for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. Listen, your trials and mine are actually on our side. They're from God. They're on our team, if you would. We use this word, there are employees. They're working for us. Think about that. That's definitely not the way we think about our trials, but they're working out something that we might have an exceeding eternal weight of glory, the glory that's coming. And so, let's remember that and maybe discuss that here tonight and just thinking through that. So we saw again the foundation, we saw the building materials, and lastly, we saw the rewards. The rewards. Each one will be rewarded for what he has done. And that's awesome when you think about it. The rewards that you and I will receive are another act of God's grace. Because what did we see? We saw that the rewards are given to us for the good works, but the good works are prepared by God beforehand for us to walk in. And then when we walk in them, it's God who empowers us to do the good work. It's grace upon grace upon grace. When I think of grace upon grace upon grace, I think of standing there, in the breakers at the ocean, and just wave after wave, they just keep coming. They keep coming. They keep coming. And that's how God's grace is. It's grace from the beginning to the end, but you and I get to walk in it. But make no mistake about it, we will be rewarded for what we do. We will be rewarded for, what we do in this life. And we talked about how those rewards are like the capacity to enjoy eternity. Like, we don't fully understand what the rewards are, but how will the rewards affect me in heaven? They will give me the capacity to enjoy eternity. We saw how the works that we do in the flesh for ourselves, for our glory, they'll be burned up. It says we'll suffer loss, but we ourselves will be saved, yet as through fire. We want to make sure that the fire right now of trials purges us so that we might have gold, silver, and precious stones when we stand before the Lord. So I want to just encourage you guys with that tonight, and just pray that you guys really experience just a great time as you think through these truths, and as you guys discuss them and as you pray them in, because man, these are life principles that are so practical, that are everyday life, but they will affect our eternal state of being able to enjoy the Lord on a deeper level for his glory. Love you guys. God bless you, and hope you guys have a great time together tonight.